Hey everybody, this is Dan from Pain Free You. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Bronx from Charlotte, North Carolina. And Bronx was in my group coaching for a while, so she volunteered to share her story with the hope of inspiring some others and maybe sharing some tips and tricks that she learned along the way. So welcome, Bronx. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, and thank you for having me. And I appreciate you taking the time to hear my story. I felt like this was a good time for me to share what I've learned, practicing the mind body approach for a little over a year now.
Okay.
And I feel like I made a lot of progress in from where I started to now. So I felt like this was a good time to
Awesome.
share and give people some inspiration as well.
Love it. So why
So
don't you take us on a journey? Tell us where you've been, what you've done, what kind of worked for you, where you're at now. You know the way this works.
yeah, I feel like I've been all around the world with like my journey with this, but it started for me back in my symptoms started back in 2021. So
Mhm.
that was about it was like 5 years, 4 years ago, like 4 years ish, where I've been dealing with TMS. But so yeah, it started in 2021. Um, I spent some time trying to figure out what started the symptoms. I still don't really know, and it's not really that relevant now. But
Right.
yeah, when it started, I that was after the peak of COVID, and it was after college, and I started having some gut issues that I could not figure out or pinpoint at the time. And I'm somebody who's always been extremely health conscious. Like when something's wrong with me or with my body, or I'm sick, I freak out, and it's just not good. Always struggle with anxiety as well, health anxiety. So when I first started, like I never really had gut problems, just maybe here and there, little things. So when it started happening, I was really scared because I didn't know what was going on. And so when it first started happening, um, I felt really like I went into panic mode right away because I was not in control of like my body. And I was early on diagnosed with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. And
Mhm.
so I kind of chalked it up to, well, before I realized it was actually just dairy. Like I was really just lactose intolerant in the beginning, but I feel like I exacerbated my symptoms and turned it into a whole thing where it wasn't that deep. It was just like, oh, you're experiencing lactose intolerance now.
Mhm.
And which is very common with a lot of people. But at the time, I didn't realize that's what it was. I didn't know what food it was. So I kind of was just like scared of food at a certain point because I was like, I can't eat anything because everything is like making my stomach upset and I don't know what's causing it. So yeah, that started out with that. And then it slowly started to trickle into me being afraid to eat um every day. And so that started end of or early 2021, continuing on. Um, it just got progressively worse where I had a series of different symptoms that just kept progressing. Gut symptoms, so it would be upset stomach, it would be nausea, it would be diarrhea, all kind of different symptoms I was having. And I just was getting more and more afraid to live, to eat. Um, it was really hard for me to go out to eat. It was hard for me to hang out with friends. It was hard for me to travel. And yeah, my main symptoms being food, which is a huge part of living. Um,
Socializing. Yep.
yes, yeah, and it was a huge part of my life before this. It really, really mentally drained me, it's like I didn't really feel like it was draining because I was just in such a state of panic all the time and fight or flight. It just felt like I was just always on alert. So yeah, this went on for a while. I got some. some gut testing done. Um, and I think there was a couple things that they found, like something with my pancreatic enzymes were low and stuff like that. And they didn't know really what could cause that. I have lupus as well, so they're saying, sometimes your lupus can affect different systems like your gut. So that was that. I didn't really know what to do for that, and they were just kind of like, when you go for like testing and stuff, I don't know, they tell you things and then they just leave you there. And like, okay, like I don't know what to do now.
Sure.
But yeah, so they didn't really give me like a real protocol to follow. It was just kind of like, yeah, this is your diagnosis, and
Have a
kind
nice.
of, yeah, you just kind of live with that. And there was different medications they offered too, but I didn't really want to take that route either. So I was just kind of lost for a while, and this was in 2022. And so I was just still struggling, progressively getting worse. And then I eventually just felt like I could not eat a lot of things. Like I eliminated a lot of stuff out of my diet, like down to certain seasonings like garlic and onion and different things. Just sticking to like a pretty basic diet. I did cut out dairy, which helped a little bit for the lactose intolerant stuff, but everything else was just like, I just could not digest much. It's like everything was just giving me upset stomach and other symptoms.
Mhm.
So that was really difficult. And that was all of 2022. And then 2023, I got diagnosed with SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
Mhm.
And I felt like that was like not a good thing, but I felt like finally an answer to
Sure.
what's causing my problems. I felt like I had a breakthrough moment there. But then it was like also really discouraging because I joined like a group for the SIBO, and it
Mhm.
was like everybody was just saying, do this, and do that, and do this, and try this, and you got to take this medication. And they offered me like some antibiotics that's supposed to kill the SIBO, but it's not guaranteed it'll work. So I was just like, oh my gosh, like I felt more lost
Yeah.
than before I found out that I had that. So that was encouraging, but then discouraging. And I was just like, I don't know what to try. And I end up trying like different types of like pills, the supplements that they suggested. But yeah, there was just nothing that was really working for me. No matter, like, I couldn't find a real correlation anymore. It was just like random. Like any
Mhm.
food could trigger me. Sometimes it would, sometimes it wouldn't. This day it would, this time it would, this time it wouldn't. So it was just like, I don't even know anymore. So yeah, I really got to a very depressed place because I could not figure out what to do. And nothing was working, no medication was working, no answers, nothing. So that went on for some time, and then I tried, like, this was July of 2023, and this was right before I found you. And so in the summer I tried keto, and I tried to do that because they said if you do like a low carb or cut carbs, it's supposed to starve the um,
So.
bacteria overgrowth.
Mhm.
So I did that. And I don't really know. I feel like it somewhat helped a little bit. I don't know if it just helped because I felt like it was helping, but it made me feel good for, I only did it for like 4 weeks, and I felt good in other ways when I did it, which maybe I needed a little bit of a reset. But yeah, that helped a little, but not like anything long term. It kind of was just like a temporary
Mhm.
fix. So then by my birthday, I found you like right on my birthday, September of 2023, because I was about to go on a trip, and I was having like a breakdown because I was really experiencing, like, I was really sick at that time. I was having just a lot of crazy symptoms, and I don't remember what I looked up on YouTube to find a video, but it was how to calm a highly sensitized
Nervous system.
nervous system. Yeah, that
Mhm.
was the first video I watched, and I felt really, really, really good watching it. And you started explaining like I can't remember verbatim, but you were explaining a lot of what I was experiencing mentally, especially. And I felt like it calmed me down. And it was also calming down some of the symptoms I was experiencing in that moment, which made me think, okay, maybe this is really mental, like a lot more mentally driven than I presumed. Because I was mostly just focused on fixing my body and fixing the symptoms and trying to figure out why my gut is like. I was like, it's no way it could possibly be so much more about my anxiety and my stress and my fear. I didn't think that. I was just like, what am I doing wrong? Like, what am I eating? Like, why am I physically, like, why does my body hate me, basically?
Hmm.
And I could not figure it out. But once I watched that, it did start to make me more open-minded to the fact that it could be mostly at this point like anxiety or stress. So yeah, that at that point I think I joined the group right away. Um, that same day or right after that video, I joined your group
Hmm.
and I was in it for so that was from September. I was there all the way through this year, very recently, like I think like a year, September to September, about that. And yeah, through the process, I feel like in the beginning I did make some pretty major strides from where I was at, especially being able to calm down faster.
Hmm.
Um, and that was good in the beginning. And then I hit like a really rough patch at the beginning of the year. So like the end of the year, like I felt like I was like, okay, I got it. I got the concept.
Hmm.
And then the beginning of the year, I feel like I kind of went backwards and I was getting upset and frustrated because I was like, well, maybe this really is not this. Like maybe it's not TMS, maybe it's still the physical. And I
Right.
was just still kind of going back to that and trying to treat the physical symptoms. And I was like, it's not working. And I got to a point where it was really bad with my anxiety, where it wasn't even the food that was triggering me anymore. It was like me just being afraid. Like it was like all I had to do was be anxious or get stressed or think about something scary and my stomach would get upset. And that was really scary because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't live like that. Like I was just so, my body, like my mind, everything just was so sensitive. And so I think I don't remember really like, it's crazy because I remember you saying, or you were talking about sometimes you don't even realize when your symptoms start to go away or when you start to really feel better. I don't really recall when I started to not think about it all the time,
Right.
which it was 24/7. And then it just got less and less and less and less worried about it every day. Um, so yeah, I didn't know when that moment really happened where I just realized, huh, I didn't really think about it today. Or, I wasn't really worried about what I ate today, or I wasn't thinking about my stomach today. And it got to that point very recently where I was just realized like, I haven't really had an upset stomach in a bit, or I can't really remember when, was the last time I really had like a real
Right.
flare, which I was like, I could never have imagined I would get here when it
Sure.
was all I would think about all the time.
Sure.
And well, the other breaking point moment I had, I can remember in the summer, I was kind of telling you um, about this. And this was really because of my other therapy I was doing for my OCD. And a lot of the same stuff kind of applies where it's like I was very much obsessive over my health. And with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, you develop certain compulsions surrounding trying to seek reassurance or
Safety.
um yeah, even safety. And so I was doing that, but obsessively to the point where I just never, it was never enough. Like I was just keep checking my body, keep checking how I feel, keep checking the food I ate, like all these different things I was doing morning, noon, and night. And I just had to stop. Like I just had to stop doing these fixing things, like the
Mhm.
fixing my body, fixing, making everything a certain way. I had a very like rigid routine of what times I would eat and what times I felt like my stomach would be messed up. So I couldn't do things around that time. And I just had to break all of these stipulations that I had. And
Mhm.
once I started doing that, like I really started to calm down. And then that's when I wasn't experiencing all those digestive issues anymore. It seems so counterproductive when you think about it, because it's like you would think like doing actively working on something would make you feel better, but that was just keeping me in a state of like
Mhm.
panic and
Well,
fear.
yeah, I mean, if you're constantly trying to fix something, the brain has no choice but to think there's something wrong.
Right. Right. And so that really helped me feel like, okay, nothing is really wrong. Like I can go back to reset. But at first it was not easy. It was like I feel like at first it kind of made my symptoms a little worse, because it was like I was just more fearful because I was just sitting with the discomfort like of not doing certain things I would do. And just like being okay with whatever symptoms I felt. I was still fighting them for a while. Like I was still like fighting them being there and being okay with them for a long time. But once I just was like, you know what, it doesn't matter. Like if it's upset today or if it's going crazy or whatever the problem is, like I have fears of, being sick in public, whatever. I was just like, it is what it is. Like if it
Sure.
happens, it happens. If I'm feel good today, that's good. If not, it's like kind of taking a more of like a neutral, nonchalant kind of approach to it, instead of a like it has to be a good day, or
Sure.
it has to be I feel great today or every day. And so I just was like, I just don't care. Like whatever. It's just it is what it is. And eventually I didn't care. Like eventually I did stop caring once I just
That's
let
awesome.
it be there, and it just faded into the background for the most part. And like from that, this has been now consistently for, I would say, about 3 months now, where I feel like not like I don't feel so afraid. I've been going out a lot more. I eat out a lot. I've traveled recently. I did my first road trip in 2 years, since I was like the peak of
Sure.
TMS. So that was a huge accomplishment, because I was so afraid to get on that road for the longest time. And I was perfectly fine. I wasn't scared. I wasn't worried about having to pull over, stop at the gas station, go to the bathroom, whatever the case may be. I made it. I made it there and back, and I
Awesome.
didn't rush through it. Um, that was also another thing I would do a lot, was like trying to just rush through things so I can get back home,
Sure.
or just rush and not really be present, not enjoy myself while I'm there. Um, but yeah, so that's where everything changed for me, when I stopped really fixing my body and stopped worrying about whether or not I feel good all the time, and just let things be what they are. I'm
Right.
definitely a perfectionist. I want everything to be a certain way. So it's been teaching me a lot about like letting go of control and surrendering to just what is happening right now and let it be. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. And I will say that I do feel like I did have some digestive issues with certain things. Like certain things just don't really agree with me, and I feel like that's pretty common for some people to have certain
Sure.
things that their body just doesn't really like. And so I did like figure out, okay, what those things actually were, versus like just things my brain was perceiving as a dangerous
Mhm.
item.
Sure.
And so now I'm not just afraid of all food. Like I just like I'm like, okay, yeah, I know sometimes that bothers me or sometimes this, I try to stay away from the dairy. But other than that, I kind of eat what I want now for
Mhm.
the most part. And I don't worry about what happens after that. It's like
Sure. That's great.
I trust myself more. Like I'm like, I'll be fine. Like I know like how to operate. I can get to the bathroom if I have to. If I feel bad, that's okay. And so it's also, I think, a lot about, for me, self-acceptance,
Mhm.
because I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to just not feel bad at all and just always be good and be healthy and be happy. And so yeah, I'm just giving myself more permission to be human.
Yeah, a normal human being.
Yes.
So I have a question. You mentioned the OCD and you did a little therapy. Do you
Hmm.
have any ideas? Because I think a lot of people with TMS, whether it be the digestive stuff or anything, I think there's a certain amount of hyper awareness of symptoms,
Hmm.
always checking the body,
Right.
almost like OCD. How am I? How am I? How am I? So was there anything in particular you did that allowed you to do that less and less over time? Um, like, is there any tips you can give? Because I know that's a common thing. It doesn't matter what kind of symptom. Checking on symptoms is everybody does it. So any tips
Right,
there?
right. And that's why I was saying, like, with your TMS mind body approach mixed with my OCD therapy, I feel like it was like the perfect
Right.
antidote for what I was dealing with. But yeah, so it's really um, what my therapist was teaching me about was just well, there's two different things. There's response prevention messages, and then there's exposure therapy. So the response messages are um, what you basically tell yourself so you don't continue to feed the obsessive loop, because what happens is with the OCD, like once you ask a question and you try to figure that question out, there's always another question. There's always like, it's never enough, like checking, never enough reassurance. So the response prevention messages are supposed to be some neutral terms that you tell yourself. So basically, what mine were about for my health was maybe I will get sick, maybe I won't, you know, or maybe it's possible that I could have food poisoning, maybe not. So it's like you're not feeding that, like it kind of just like neutralizes it. Like I don't know, it does something. Like it does something where it's just like there's not any more questions. It's just kind of like you're sitting in the uncertainty, because that is where the obsession really is thriving, is like the desire to be certain about something. And so when you kind of tell yourself these messages that are making you sit there, it makes you not obsess about it as much. You don't care as much. You're not like striving for an answer. It's just like maybe or maybe not. And so
I like the
that's one
maybe or
thing.
maybe not. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, that's one thing that I did a lot of practice surrounding, where it's like um I don't need to know. I don't have to know. And that's
Well,
where I stopped. Uh-huh.
in some cases, we can't know,
Right. Exactly.
which is why you get stuck in a loop. It's like, I need to know, I need to know, I need to know. But if you can't, then I see how, you know, maybe it's this or maybe it's not. It's a closed loop. Like there's nowhere else to go with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's what happens. And that's really what I practice. And that you can apply it to any scenario. You can apply it to anything you're obsessing over, honestly. And it really helps a lot of the time. And I recommend it for anybody, even if you don't have OCD. And then the exposure therapy is basically like you are intentionally exposing yourself to the situations that you're afraid of, and then just sitting with that anxiety and letting the anxiety kind of come over you and like sit there until it comes down. And then eventually you're pretty much like desensitizing because you're used to like the anxiety that you're experiencing. And then over time, certain things are just not as scary. So what I would do if I was afraid of like certain foods, that could be like actually eating that food and not, for example, I guess taking like a Pepto-Bismol, something I would take like to make sure that I don't get sick after that, or whatever it would be. Like I just sit with that discomfort and not knowing whether or not I'll be sick or not. I wouldn't take a Pepto, or maybe I would go go for a drive after I eat. That's like me doing something intentionally that it does make me anxious. It makes me nervous because I don't want to feel sick in the car. But when I would do that, and after that, like it builds up kind of like your tolerance, I guess, for
Just,
that anxiety.
yeah, for the discomfort.
Yes, yeah, and so that's really important because the reason why you really do the compulsions is to get rid of the anxiety. So why you check and why you get reassurance is because you don't like the discomfort or the fear. And so, but that actually keeps you kind of stuck in it. So when you just sit with it and you don't do something, it comes down on its own. And every time you do that, it doesn't spike up as high. So it will spike less and less and less the more you just sit with it because there's no danger. Your body's like your mind is used to it.
That's
So those are the two things that I would practice a lot this summer.
mm,
And I feel like that's really what got me to this place now where I'm not freaking out all the time.
that's awesome. Yeah, I remember some of our conversations, how anxious you'd be about I'm supposed to go visit some family or this and that, and I don't know how I'm going to do it, and
Yeah.
all those big fears. It sounds like you've conquered them and really overcame them, and are able to go anywhere and do what you want. So that's
Yeah, yeah. And it's like sometimes I'm still a little like nervous sometimes, but I don't go to that place of doom, I guess you can say, like, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world. But it is a process. Like it is not something that like mentally I just was like, okay, I'm gonna stop thinking like this and then it's better. It took a lot of practice, like every day, having to um really do that. And then also like another thing was that was kind of a compulsion for me was doing a lot of research on my symptoms and like looking up just I don't know, just doing things like researching on the internet and like Googling symptoms and Googling all these different things. And nothing really gave me any real long-term reassurance,
right.
no real certainty. So I just stopped doing that and I stopped looking at everybody else's like IBS stories and
Sure.
all that stuff. Like it doesn't really help for the process, at least it doesn't for me. And it can be sometimes encouraging when you success stories for sure.
Hmm.
But just kind of the scary stuff of yeah, no, it just didn't work. So I had to stop doing that, stop looking up symptoms and just trust that well the mindset I really adopted was okay, I'm gonna fully do the mind body and anything that's left after that I can presume is a physical issue.
Hmm.
So I was like, if I do 100% mind body and don't worry about fixing anything physically, then at least I will eliminate what is
Mind,
the
body.
TMS. Yeah. So I was like, okay. So then that's what I did. And that's where I feel like I'm at now, where I'm like, okay, now I know certain things physically do something, but a lot of it, like majority of it, definitely
Yeah.
was TMS.
Yeah. So some people do have dairy intolerances, lactose intolerance, and that
Yeah.
it's a very common thing, and it's very easy to work around that. Um,
Yeah.
Food does matter to a degree, but it wasn't causing everything that you were experiencing, as you've proven.
Hmm.
by eliminating the fears and the OCD and the hyper vigilance around foods. And um, but I know there's times where if I eat a couple of slices of pizza, the combination of the carbs and the cheese, I'll get all sick.
Right.
And so, there is a physiological reaction. I'm not afraid of it. I actually love it. It tastes great, but pretty reliably, if I eat more than a slice, I'll feel congested. And it'll last for several hours and then it'll settle down. So there is a biological effect to food. Certain foods make us feel better than others, but um, you've overcome the fear of everything because before you said it didn't matter what you ate. You had a reaction. You were afraid of eating virtually everything.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can pretty much eat a pretty full diet, maybe minus a couple of things,
Yeah.
but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But it's not like I'm afraid of what's going to happen if I eat this or and the thing like you said that the symptoms are real, which that is very true. Like I felt what I felt, like my body reacted how it reacted, but it was truly amplified by that anxiety. And I remember you were saying when I first joined the group about digestion and how when you are anxious or stressed, you're not digesting your food
Correct.
properly. So that's where it really clicked for me, where I was like, oh, so that's if I can really get back to a state of calm around eating, then I should
Mhm.
be able to digest food a lot better,
Yes.
like just on that alone. And so that was really my goal was to just come down from that fear.
Stress less. Yeah, because when you're in the stress response, that fight or flight response, digestion is suppressed because the stress response is a survival mode. And it says it doesn't matter if we digest food because we got to get away from that tiger, for example. So it's a survival mode, and digestion is not a priority, nor is the immune system. And so, um, question, the symptoms that were attributed to SIBO, they're
Mm-hmm.
pretty much gone at this point. So your gut returned to balance.
Yeah, yeah, it did. It did. So that's how I knew it was mind body, like the approach was the best because I didn't have to go through the whole protocol or, whatever they said to eliminate
Yeah.
the SIBO and a lot of it was a lot of fear surrounding that too because people were like, oh, it's very likely that it'll come back and or it won't go away,
Yeah.
all these different things. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have this forever.
Well, so my take on it is that the SIBO wasn't the problem.
Right,
So
yeah.
that was the result of a digestive system that was suppressed for a really long time. And then the
Hmm.
more stressed out you got about a suppressed digestive system symptom, the digestive upset, the nausea, the IBS, it created an environment where SIBO developed, but that was never the core problem. And so by trying to
Yeah.
fix the symptom, which was the SIBO, you're not addressing the core problem, which was all of the fear and the anxieties and the stress response. And so what you did was you went upstream and you dealt with the fear and the obsession and the panic surrounding food. And over time, the gut rebalanced itself. It took care of it itself.
Hmm.
Trust the body because the body does know what to do. The body knows how to digest food. Up until 2021, your body digested food no problem.
Right, yep.
And it was only during that high stress environment that things started to get out of balance. And then the fear took hold and then it became chronic. And so SIBO, I think, was just a byproduct of that state of being. And so I just really wanted to emphasize that for anybody watching, that it wasn't the SIBO treatments that you did that resolved everything. It was getting rid of the fear and the OCD and the panic that allowed the whole system to settle down. Am I on target with that?
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I that registered for me later on, like
Yeah.
maybe earlier, a little mid this year, where I was like, okay, that makes sense how I even got to the SIBO because, um, yeah, and probably how a lot of people got to the SIBO, like everybody that is struggling with that, like, for some people I know, there's a lot of different causes. Like some people, it's like infections, it's like surgeries to cause like a gut out of balance, whatever. But yeah, for me personally, there was nothing I could correlate to why that would just out of thin air happen and dysregulate like that when I didn't have any prior illnesses or infections or anything.
Yeah. So
So that makes the most sense.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
Oh no, that's good.
I'm always the type who's looking for the mind-body connection. So even
Hmm.
infections and surgeries that you indicated sometimes lead to SIBO, well, those can be scary things for people that can put them in fight or flight, which might cause a similar digestive imbalance that leads to SIBO. Was it truly
Hmm.
the surgery that created it, or was that the scare event that put the person in fight or flight, suppressed digestion, and it developed? So
Hmm.
I'm always kind of looking for that connection. I'm open to being wrong, but
Yeah,
there's some of the things that I think about when I hear somebody saying, "Oh, surgery caused my SIBO." Well, how does that happen?
yeah,
Right?
yeah. That's true too. Yeah, that's a good point. I think anything can like any type of fear now, and a lot of people live in chronic fear and stress and anxiety is probably like more common than not to live in that state of mind where TMS can be very present
Sure.
in so many different ways.
Absolutely. So anything else you want to share? 'Cause I think this was great. You covered a lot of stuff. I'm really glad you took the time to explain the OCD stuff. I think that'll be helpful for people.
Hmm.
Anything else you want to share about the journey?
Um, I think that's like for the most part, I feel like the journey is like a lifelong journey type of thing, like any other type of healing or process. I feel like right now it's kind of like in remission, but
Yeah,
I'm
but don't
gonna
call
apply
it
it.
that because remission says it's coming back, but it's not.
No,
It
not in
doesn't
like a
have to.
scary way. I'm just saying like if it did, like I would still apply this to everything, like
You would know what it was. Yeah.
yeah, any symptoms I experience from now on. I'm not like afraid like I was of it happening. I will always first apply a mind body approach
Right.
to it and see how that goes. Especially if it's something similar like digestive, I most likely know what that is.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I'm very grateful for the group. I I'm grateful that I just was able to meet a lot of nice people. I think I really liked Annie. She was very encouraging, and there was a couple other people in the group as well that I was seeing weekly, and
Yeah.
everybody's stories. But I will also say, just don't be concerned about how long it takes you to
Hmm.
heal, because I was really worried about that in the beginning, and I was just felt like it was taking me a long time.
Well, yeah.
But everybody has a different timeline, and it's still a process for me. Like I'm doing really well, but it's still something I'm applying like consciously when I'm feeling anxious or something comes up. I'm still thinking about it. So it's still there. And yeah, but that's just the main thing is don't worry about the time. And the less you worry about the time, I feel like the faster you kind of progress. And that's
Exactly.
where I think I started really making progress because I just stopped caring about how long it was going to take,
Hmm.
whether I felt symptoms one day or not,
Yeah.
just all the extra stuff, just let it be.
Hmm.
And you just eventually, you really stop caring like significantly. And that's something I didn't think I would get to. I never thought I was like, how would I not care about these symptoms? And they're so annoying and bothersome and stressful and painful. And it's like now I don't really even notice.
Because you know what they are and you know how to respond. So why get worried about it? Why get all worked up about it?
Yeah,
So, and you did mention, you said, I'm not fearful anymore. And that's truly when you recover. Will you ever have loose bowels? Yeah, we all do, right?
yeah,
But you're no longer afraid of it. You're no longer trying to prevent. You're no longer living your life according to the fear of, well, maybe that'll happen. Um, you've overcome the fear. and now you're trusting your body as opposed to thinking I have to micromanage everything I do. And we don't need to micromanage our digestion. We just don't. All that does is create more fear, anxieties, worries, stress. Trust the body. It knows what to do. And it sounds like you're doing that beautifully. So I'm so
You,
happy and proud of you.
thank you. Oh, you mentioned a really good word, like two words I thought of that probably can apply to everybody is prevention and avoidance.
Hmm.
Those are two that I feel like I tackled head on to really help me conquer the fear, which was like looking at things that I was avoiding. I was avoiding a lot of stuff. I was avoiding people, food, places,
Sure.
all those things I was just trying to like avoid because they were triggers for me and I was afraid of them. And um, slowly exposing yourself to what you're trying to avoid, it
Hmm.
does help. And then also, like you said, the prevention, that was a big one when I was trying to prevent my stomach from getting upset. And I would do that every day. But eventually, I just stopped trying to prevent that from happening. And that's really where the fear came down a lot. Like, if it was going to hurt, it was going to be messed up that day, it was going to be messed up. I wasn't going to be trying to avoid places or get places early or wait a certain time. Like I was just going and gonna do what I have to do.
Yeah.
And if it hurts when I get there, then we'll deal with it then. But yeah, I had to stop doing that also. And that helped a lot.
Yeah. I like your maybe it will, maybe it won't, or,
Yeah.
maybe, maybe not. Because it's like, okay, well, I'm going to live my life anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to, you can't live your life based on symptoms. So brilliant. I love it. Um, yeah, unless you've got anything else to share, I think this was great. Going to help a lot of people out with digestive issues and frankly, any type of symptoms. The things
Hmm.
you talked about, overcoming the fear, overcoming uh, the OCD thinking and the trying to prevent and avoid and all those things. That's going to help no matter what your symptoms are. So for anybody
Hmm.
who goes, well, I don't have digestive things, so that doesn't apply to me. It does.
Yeah.
The symptoms, they don't matter as much as you think. The concepts that you shared apply to anybody and any symptom. Doesn't matter what you got. So,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So
unless
I
you
think
got
that's
anything else.
I think that's pretty much it. Like you said, we're not broken. There's
Right.
really nothing to fix, and a lot of things fix themselves without you being involved, and you
Sure.
can calm down. I didn't think I would ever get calm. I've never really been a calm person. I mean, I'm calm on the outside, but on the inside, I'm like I've never been like a
Right.
like not anxious person.
But
But
that's okay. You
it,
don't have to stop that.
yeah.
We don't have to become a new person. If you have, a lifetime of being anxious, we don't have to stop that. But we can apply these techniques anyway and
Hmm.
make massive progress towards getting symptom free.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Exactly the point. Like I'm I feel like I did it and I not to say I was like the most anxious person in the world, but like I was definitely up there. So
right.
it's like possible for you too.
Yeah, so people with health anxiety, you can still get better. It's a proven process.
Mhm.
It's reliable, it's predictable when you implement. And Bronx, you did a great job implementing and trusting. And I know there was plenty of times I remember our conversations where you were pretty nervous, pretty scared.
Mhm.
I think you even mentioned that, sometimes being around family would trigger a little bit and
Yeah.
you get nervous that, well, that stressful environment, you were worried that that might cause a problem with symptoms.
Yeah.
And so you had to learn how to predict bad things and
Mhm.
start to predict that things will be okay. And maybe it will, maybe it won't. I still love that. That's cool. So thank you for
Yeah, I
sharing that.
have I have some more different messages that I have saved. I'll probably send you a couple more. I can't remember all of them right now, but there's a
Okay.
couple more that can apply for different things.
Yeah, feel free to drop me a message. I'd love to hear more of it.
Okay, cool.
So thank you again. Appreciate you, Bronx. If I can ever do anything for you, you know where to find me. And just give a wave. Say thanks, everybody. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank
All
you,
right.
Dan. I appreciate it.
Take care, Bronx.